Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. I'm joined in studio today by writer, director, producer Robert Meyer Burnett.
Man, that Andor.
Woo! Woo! Jonathan Voico is here.
I have friends everywhere. Remember those words.
One of the stars of the sure-to-be Golden Globe-nominated audio drama podcast,
Oh,
Chris Carr is here.
oh, let's go, voters.
And most importantly, of course, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a few predetermined topics we got lined up for you guys. And then in the second part of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. The way you get a comment or question on the show is by using our tip link simply at www.streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. And here's the good news about the tip link. It's actually good 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So even if you're not watching the show live, maybe you're listening to our podcast, maybe Golden Globe nominated podcast. I doubt that. A little bit later in the day, see either on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Or maybe you're watching this show a little bit later on the day. You can still send in a question. And if you send one in when we're not live, we'll just get around to answering it on the next episode. By the way, Thor may be the god of thunder, but take a knee and show respect to the gods of ice as the Toronto Maple Leafs today at 4 o'clock take on the Florida Panthers in Game 2. Leafs are up 1-0. All hail the Maple Leafs. All right. With that down, guys, let's get on to some stuff here, shall we? And we're going to start with this. You know, every year at CinemaCon, we get blown away by like some footage and trailers and things that we get to see before a lot. And one of the trailers that I was absolutely most excited for once I saw it has now dropped online publicly for the world to see today. The upcoming Lionsgate movie, The Long Walk, starring Mark Hamill, is in it as the bad guy. We talked about it. If you guys watched our coverage of CinemaCon, you guys saw us talk about it there, but it is now dropped now publicly, so we've gotten a chance to watch it again. And Francis Lawrence directing it based on a story by Stephen King, who originally penned it under a pen name.
Richard Bachman.
That's right. And the good folks over at the Hollywood Reporter described it as this. Lawrence helmed the feature from a script by J.T. Molnar, Strange Darling. The film adapts King's 1979 novel of the same name that was originally published under his pseudonym, Richard Bachman. Serving as producers are Lawrence, watcher of this show, Roy Lee, Steven Schneider, and Cameron McConmee, I believe you said his name. Do they describe the film? No. But basically the gist is this. Bunch of kids. Oh yeah, here it is. The Long Walk focuses on an annual contest in which 100 teen boys set out on the titular journey that requires them to maintain a quick pace. The walk ends with just one survivor. This was a movie that I had heard of. Like when we went to CinemaCon, I had heard of it, but I didn't know anything about it whatsoever. I knew they were making a movie called The Long Walk. I heard Mark Hamill might be in it, whatever. But it was really, hadn't thought about it in ages. And then at CinemaCon, they play this trailer. And it had me clenching my teeth, grabbing the arms of my seats, clenching the butt cheeks with tension and horror. And I mean, it's fair to say, it's a little bit of a Hunger Games meets Battle Royale, meets, I don't know, whatever other thing you can put in there. Yes. Is it the most original thing we've seen on screen? No, but neither are any horror films or any zombie films, I should say, anything like that. And you could do them right. They can be incredible experiences. Mark Hamill as the villain in this. And Mark Hamill came out on stage at CinemaCon. Said, I love it. If you can't be the hero, there's nothing better than being the bad guy. You want everybody to hate you. Like this. And he's awesome in this trailer. The kid, what was his name? Ben from Karate Kid.
Ben Wang?
Yes, that's him. He's in this as well. I told you, this kid's going to be a superstar. I'll tell you what, I love this trailer. And the most horrific scene for me in the trailer isn't getting shot in the head or stuff like that. It's the one kid, the close-up of the feet walking with one foot and then the other foot, and the other foot's
broken
completely
ankle.
snapped in half.
Yep.
His foot's completely bent over and he has to keep walking. I was like, like I couldn't take it. Anyway, Chris, you were not at CinemaCon this year. This is
No.
your first
Thank
time
goodness.
seeing this trailer. What did you think about the trailer for The Long Walk?
Oh, it's good. It's real good. That foot's messed up.
Yeah.
Although I do have that knee-jerk reaction every time there's some kind of dystopian game of sorts where I go, why would anyone participate in this? And then I think about context and go, oh, okay, this is terrifying, and what a horrible, horrible timeline. This looks really, really horrible. I mean, in the best sense of
Yes.
it, right? Of just, it's a very, very simple concept that is ripe with opportunity for interesting kills, upsetting kills, and a lot of character development, which is one of the things that for me in a horror genre kind of story or any dystopian story, I need that character element, that character driven part. Otherwise, it's just senseless violence for the sake of senseless violence, which is fine every now and then. But this seems like it's going to be a really interesting character study, and Mark Hamill looks epic.
He looks great in it. Rob, you did see this at CinemaCon. What did you think about the trailer?
First of all, I read this book in 1980. I read it. It came out in 79. This book was a cult novel at my junior high school. I was 12 when I read it. And it made me a Richard Bachman fan, and I went out and got Rage and then Roadwork and The Running Man. We're getting 2 Richard Bachman adaptations. We're getting a new adaptation of The Running Man this year. I love this book. I wanted to see this book made into a movie literally now, how old am I? For 45 years. Frank Darabont controlled this property for a very, very long time. And I got to hand it to, it seems, okay, I'll be a simp, a sycophant, call me what you want. But Roy Lee has this, written by the writer of Strange Darling, which he also was the executive producer
and that
on.
was really good.
He's got Weapons coming out and How to Train Your Dragon live action. Someone one day, Variety or Hollywood Reporter is going to do an expose for 25 years. Roy Lee just has banger after banger after banger. I will say, the remake of The Stand might have been a misstep, all right? But I don't want to seem like such a simp. But the guy knows how to get these movies made, and his taste is impeccable. The scripts that he finds, I don't know how he does it. Honestly, I don't know how he does it, because he works for multiple studios and gets incredible scripts. This looks, not only does it look great, it looks like a perfect adaptation of the book. Like, if you go in and read the book, like, this book came out in 79. The only thing that was analogous to it, there's a Franco-Italian co-production of a movie called The 10th Victim that stars Marcello Mastroianni and Ursula Andress. That's about the big hunt, which was made in the 60s. It's very Austin Powers looking now. It's a great movie. And this were the precursors to the Hunger Game, to Battle Royale, which Roy Lee also, I think, has the remake rights to. And the Hunger Games. I mean, I cannot tell you that to see the realization of something I've wanted to see for 45 years, directed by Francis Lawrence, who made Constantine, who made Water for Elephants, which
Hunger Games?
Brilliant.
With the little similarities there?
Look, he made Catching Fire and the Mockingjay 1 and 2. I mean, if you're going to go get a guy to direct this, it's so, and by the way, Chris, in the story, if you win, you get anything you want.
Oh.
So the idea is, it is kind of this dystopian
New
future.
shoes?
And the great thing about the book is, and the reason why it appealed to me, this was my young adult fiction. Just so it would
That
jump.
explains a lot.
I know, right? It would jump, but literally, I was 12 when I read this book.
Yeah.
YA fiction, but it deals with. I'm so excited about this movie. It jumps in and out of the lives of these kids, so you find out like what Garrity, the main character, what caused him to join the Long Walk. And then he has, I won't get into the story, but there's also kind of his foil, his villain character. And there's kind of a twist with that character I'm not going to mention, but it's so good. It was the most compulsively readable thing. And when you're 12, you're like, would you join this?
No.
And yet, no, at the end of the book, I'm like, I could do it. I could win.
I mean, I'm not going on a hike in regular life.
I mean, I'm just telling
your
you.
life's on the
No.
line.
I can't wait to see this movie, and it's not going to be the feel-good film of September.
Yeah, I could tell.
Yeah, you can tell
But
that.
I mean, it is for me because I've been wanting to see this movie literally for 45 years.
Has a very sepia
exciting.
tone to it.
Yeah.
It kind of
Yeah.
reminds me
It
of It
does.
Chapter 1.
The color
Oh,
selection of it has got a
that makes
real
sense.
kind of feel to it.
Also, I kept trying to remember where I saw this guy from. Okay, then I had to look it up, and it's like, yeah, of course. It's Cooper Hoffman, who is Philip
Yeah.
Seymour Hoffman's son.
Who's in?
He's in Licorice
He
Pizza,
works-
and
he
he was
works
in
for the
Saturday Night.
Kingpin.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
that's
That's
different.
No. That's Soprano's
Oh,
son.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pardon
that's
me.
Baby Soprano.
Yes,
Yeah.
Baby
But
Soprano.
but he was in Saturday Night and Licorice Pizza as well.
Yes. That's what I meant.
All right, guys. The question is for you.
Can't get everything
Did
right.
you have a chance to watch this trailer for The Long
It's all
Walk?
the
We've been
adrenaline,
kind
the
of
excitement.
agogging and agassing about it ever since CinemaCon. Now you've had a chance to see it. What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, jump down to the comment section below and leave those thoughts there. All right. That down, guys. Let's move on to this, shall we? You know, the Golden Globes are completely useless. That is one of my...
There goes our shot.
Yep, there goes our shot at it. But listen, I give credit where it's due. They added a new category recently. Best stand-up special. Best stand-up special.
Wow.
Was one of the new categories. And you know what? Just other than the previous new category they did, which best box office and cinema accomplishment, which was just idiotic. But the addition of the best stand-up one was actually a really good addition. That's become a big thing in home entertainment now, is the stand-up comedy specials on the various streaming services. I like that addition. Not so much the best successful movie award. That is so stupid. But anyway, the Golden Globes have just announced they're adding another category. Best podcast. I have questions, but let's go over to Deadline first. They write this. Organizers of the Golden Globes on Wednesday said that their ceremony will introduce a best podcast category beginning with the 83rd Golden Globes in 2026. The recognition for the burgeoning medium will mark a first for a major film and TV award show. To date, podcasts have been recognized mostly in digital forward award shows like the Webby Awards, the Ambies, the iHearts Awards, and the Shorty Awards. Other awards groups that have podcast categories include the Peabody Awards, which revealed in their latest winners list this month, and the NAACP Image Awards. Okay. So here's my first reaction to this. This feels like yet another desperate gasp by the Golden Globes to get attention. Because much like their best box office and cinematic achievement thing, that's just an excuse for them to have given Wicked an award last year. It's just an excuse to put in some of the more popular films to get attention on the Golden Globes. Podcasting is insanely popular right now. We do a podcast. Podcasting is insanely popular right now. But what exactly does it have to do with anything else involved? Now you take something like True Noir.
Yes, do that.
Which one should. One should be checking out
Thank
True
you.
Noir. If you check out something like True Noir, that is scripted drama. And there are podcasts that are like that are scripted drama. Likened unto the old radio serials, right? I can see that being a category because it's scripted drama.
We have Academy Award nominees, Emmy winners.
Yeah, like everybody does them now, right? I could see that. But I think, again, it was very telling that in announcing they're going to have a podcast category, they didn't announce anything about what that means. Does that mean Bobby Biff, who covers the Philadelphia Eagles every Monday morning after they Sunday get, does that qualify?
Go Birds.
Go Birds. Does that qualify? There's literally a podcast on 101 uses of spam. Does that qualify?
Yes.
Food or mail?
The food. Does that qualify? But the other one
should.
would too. Or at least would it? Or is this going to be limited to like movies, television, audio drama in podcast form? If it's just the audio drama podcast form thing, I can actually, because I said my first reaction was this is just desperate. But if they do come out and specify this is like drama, this is scripted entertainment, but in a different medium, I think I could get on board with that. If they're going to nominate the Joe Rogan Show, or if they're going to nominate, God forbid, the John Campea Show, or if they're going to nominate like something that has nothing to do with anything regarding
Basically interview
entertainment.
shows that are just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to do that, then it's like, then this is just desperate. There are other award shows that cover this. Anyway, Rob, you hear about this. What is your first reaction? Should they make the distinction as to what is a podcast for them versus other? I don't know. How would you handle this?
Well, it's interesting. If you look at the Golden Globes, they break things into comedy, drama, comedies and musicals. That's one category of film. So if you're saying podcast, there's probably far more different kinds of podcasts than there are different kinds of movie genres. So just by saying podcast, I don't know what that means. I have no idea. What are the criteria that they're going to use? I think, first of all, I think it's great that they're recognizing such a new popular form of entertainment. But even movies have a finite number of how many podcasts are you going to listen to or watch over the year to figure out which is the best. I mean, I don't even understand where you'd begin with such a category. I think it's cool they're doing it, but I have no idea what the criteria is. What do they deem?
Let me ask you this. Let's say the Golden Globes get a hold of you and say, we need a recommendation from you about what is our criteria. What would you think should be like criteria that would make this valid?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would say, like, okay, an interview show is different than, say, a true crime podcast that delves into a real murder. Those are two very different things. So I would ask, like, I want to know, like, are you looking for narrative? Like, that would be the different thing. Narrative is different than interview. And I would say that's a demarcation point. Because if you're doing a true crime podcast, you're spinning a narrative, which is different than an interview show. So that could be
it's almost like an audio
point.
Documentary.
Yeah,
exactly.
That would be more of something you would have to craft.
Yeah,
that would
documentary
go along
versus
the lines of what
scripted.
movie making is. Yeah, that's scripted. Because if you're just interviewing somebody, well, then you're awarding the interviewer, like best podcaster. And I would think, Joe Rogan would probably be at the top of that list because of his diversity of guests and how long he has them on. But there are other good interview podcasts too about other things. Like if you did if you're Martha Stewart and did a podcast, she's only doing whatever she does, but it's limited in scope. So there's a lot of questions. I would split it into, I would make it a narrative just because I've worked in that medium. But I mean,
but see, I would personally go further. I would make it not just narrative. It would be scripted narrative.
Yes.
Like storytelling.
Yes.
Right.
Like Chris Carr and you do in True Noir.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
Anyway, Chris,
Best actress.
it's interesting because if you do want to include the other ones, you now create 15 categories of podcast, or is it just, anyway, if they got a hold of you, Chris, and said, okay, we're dedicated to doing podcast. What should our criteria be? How would you advise them?
I would absolutely push them towards narrative podcasting, because otherwise, I mean, it's just like New York Times bestsellers, right? There's a book on everything. There's a podcast on everything. Amy and I literally do a podcast about not knowing fandoms. Like that's our whole thrust. There's people who do things, the Sporkful that talks about, like the Jello heiress. There's all kinds of weird stuff out there.
There's a Jello heiress?
There's a Jello
See,
heiress and a potential Jello curse. Honestly, the Sporkful, you guys should listen to it. But in that case, that's a podcast that won a James Beard Award because it's food centric. And that categorization makes sense.
A guy who has a beard talks about Jello?
James Beard, the awards for food? Robert. Come on,
Trying to make
you're
a Jello-
cultured.
I was trying to make a beard
Come
Jello
on,
joke.
it's
A beard
okay. It's
Jello
all
joke.
right. They can't all be fire, and they usually are.
Okay, sorry.
All right? It's just very spaghetti at the wall right now. Of hey, this is a very popular medium, so let's do everything is what it feels like right now. And I don't understand what the criteria would be then for voting down through that. Of if it is every single podcast, that's way too far of a net, right? And I know we already have Best Picture and things of that nature, but it is a format, right? That we were talking about narrative filmmaking. And then there's documentary or short film or things like that. You have to have some kind of gauge like that when it comes to the podcast too, of either categorization, length, narrative versus non-narrative, that kind of thing. So this is just a lot of white noise right now.
Look, I don't mean to be pessimistic, but it's so easy to when you're talking about the Golden Globes. I think I'll tell you right now how it's going to shake out. There's not going to be any criteria. They're going to look at the Apple Podcast list. They're going to take the most popular podcasts in the world.
And who's willing to go see them?
That's right. And who's likely, if they're at the Golden Globes, will get most of their followers to watch the show. I guarantee you. I don't even know if Mr. Beast has a podcast, but Mr. Beast will get nominated. That Joe Rogan will get nominated. Talk Tua will get nominated. Whatever. They're just simply going to look at the charts and say, "Oh, these are the most popular ones." That's what might get us.
She's
people
back,
watching.
by the way.
Is she?
Is she from her crypto scandal?
Yeah, she's back from her crypto scandal. I don't know if it's Vanity Fair. She's got an expose.
Good for
She
her.
did a fashion.
You know, I'll give her the
Resilient.
I saw some of
Resilience
the
that
crypto stuff.
Tua.
The crypto stuff wasn't really her fault.
No,
I'll give
I
her
know.
that. I mean, she shouldn't be a thing. She
No.
shouldn't be a thing. But the crypto stuff wasn't her fault.
She didn't create it.
She just put her name on something and went, oh,
Yep.
no.
Oopsie. But yeah, no, I'm telling you, it's just going to be who's the most popular
If you take your
podcasters. Who
financial
can we get? And
advice
that's
from
all it's
somebody
going to be.
known for their literal spit take, I feel like you shouldn't. You get what
You
you
should have been giving
deserve.
advice in a different direction.
Exactly.
All
One
right,
that's
guys.
not wind facing.
Question is for you. What do you think about this? The Golden Globes are going to introduce a best podcast category. Good idea, bad idea. If you were in charge, would you do it? And if so, what kind of criteria will you set up? Or are you more pessimistic like me that they're just going to use this as a clout thing to try to get the kiddies to watch the Golden Globes? I don't know. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. That down. Let's move on to this, shall we? You know, say what you want about the state of Disney and all that kind of stuff, and I've certainly had a lot to say about it. But the reality is they still put out the biggest movies. I mean, you're looking at the billion-dollar films. I think they're exclusively Disney films the last little bit. I mean, you did Deadpool and Wolverine or Inside Out or whatever. But anyway, they're doing all right. But I think we all agree they haven't quite been firing on all the cylinders they were since 2019 pre-pandemic, right? A year in which, if I'm not mistaken, they had $6 billion films. Think about that. $6 billion films
That's a good
in
year.
1 year. Well, they have been kind of having a little bit of a reemergence lately. And now Bob Iger is saying that he believes their film slate over the next year is the strongest film slate they've had since before the pandemic. This is written to us in the Hollywood Reporter. It says the following. Disney CEO Bob Iger says, your movie theater popcorn ready. On a Wednesday morning conference call with media analysts, Iger sung the praises of Disney's upcoming theatrical release calendar. And it is actually sounding pretty good. I have a lot of confidence that our upcoming slate, Iger said, he then pretty much listed all of them out individually. Iger said that he has personally seen the live-action Lilo and Stitch a few times and can endorse it wholeheartedly, adding, tracking is enormous. Yeah, that movie's going to do really well for them. Lilo and Stitch is headed for a 4-day domestic debut of $120 million. I'm going to guarantee you right now it's going to be higher than that. One of the best showings ever for Disney's live-action reimaginings, according to the sources with access to data from National Research Group. The film also gives ranges in addition to target number. In this case, it's 110 to 130 million. Other films that Iger singled out for having his attention over the next little bit and endorsement are Pixar's Elio, coming out in June. The Fantastic Four, First Steps, coming out in July. As well as Tron Ares, which looks way better than I possibly gave it credit for. I never thought that would actually look good. And it might be crap, but I got to admit it looks good. Anyway, Zootopia 2, Avatar 3, Fire and Ash, the Mandalorian movie, another Toy Story, and a live-action Moana is all coming. He says, well, in 2019, I think was our best year, the strongest I've seen since then. So Iger's, and listen again. Tron Ares, Zootopia 2, Avatar 3, Elio, Fantastic Four, Lilo and Stitch. It's a pretty good lineup.
I mean, doesn't also Doomsday fall into that within the next 18 months?
When does Doomsday comes out in a year?
Yeah.
Is that what they're alluding to with the Avengers film?
Oh, that's probably,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's probably what it's alluded to. So, I mean, and listen, just through these, Lilo and Stitch definitely has $1 billion potential. I'm not saying it will get $1 billion, but it's definitely got $1 billion potential. I don't think Fantastic Four will, but Zootopia 2, absolute $1 billion potential. Avatar 3 has $2 billion potential. Then live action Moana, I don't know how that's going to go, but it's got $1 billion potential. Toy Story movies can make $1 billion.
Mhm.
Again, maybe only half of them will. Mandalorian won't. But I mean,
But they should be able to cover their bills this next year.
yeah, they should be all right. They won't hurt to pay rent on the Burbank lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rob, you hear Bob Iger saying, listen, obviously 2016 was a banger, but this is our best year, our upcoming slate than we've had since prior to the pandemic. What do you think about him saying that? Do you agree with him? And which of these movies are standing out to you the most?
Well, it's sad that Elio and Fantastic Four are the only original or the only new movies that aren't based on franchises. But that said, look, I like the first Zootopia. I'm obviously a big Tron fan. having made a feature-length documentary about the original Tron. I love the fact that Nine Inch Nails is putting out this. They have a
And
they
how
scored
good
it.
does that music sound in the trailer?
Oh
Yeah.
my! And they have to top Daft Punk, which is that alone is amazing.
Tall order.
Tall order. I mean, and look, I'm not gonna lie, John. I love the Avatar movies. Call them Fern Gully in space. Call them what you want. They're always gobsmacking. The two of them are to me. I want to see the Mordor Na'vi. I want to see the Na'vi that have forsaken Iowa. I'm in. Count me in. I mean, I'm going to go to that theater with bells on and probably see that shit in IMAX 3D dozens of times. I don't care. I don't care what you say. But I think that this is an exciting lineup for Disney. Because what is Disney supposed to do? Deliver populist entertainment to people that love Disney. They're doing exactly that. It's not going to be half-assed. Everyone's going all in. Avatar 3 was supposed to come out a year ago. So
Originally, yeah.
Yeah, and it's because it took so long to render a long 3D movie like this, so they gave it the time, which was smart. He also didn't mention what 20th Century Studios has coming, which is Predator, the animated Predator film, which apparently is finished and everyone
Killer of
loved
Killers.
it. Yeah, Killer of Killers, and you've got Predator Badlands. And that's part of Disney.
That looks really good.
I mean, I think Bob Iger, 20th Century Studios does fall under its purview. You got the Quiet King of franchises, Steve Asbell over there doing great work. So that too. So they've got it's a great lineup. What's not to love?
Chris, he's
Did I mention Avatar?
Yeah, you mentioned Avatar.
You may have.
You did mention Sci-Fi Fern Gully, yes.
Iger is saying that this is the best lineup they've had since 2019. Do you agree with his assessment when you look at this lineup? I mean, it's hard to say when we haven't seen the movies yet, but as
Exactly.
far as potential goes, and which of these movies are standing out to you the most?
There's a lot of potential here, and I don't doubt Iger believing that this is the best lineup, because this also supports what he said back in 2004 of how the future of Disney, particularly the parks themselves, do not lie in original stories, but in IP and leveraging IP. And that is what this slate is all about, leveraging the IP that they already have, sequels, remakes, etc. So I would hope that this pays off for him. That being said, I am reluctantly very excited about Tron. I was not thrilled about that movie. You guys know Jared Leto's not one of my favorite actors. I don't enjoy him. And watching that trailer, I was like, oh, damn it, this looks so good. This looks so rad. And then obviously Lilo and Stitch looks so, so delightful. And that movie is going to make all the money. It's a really promising slate. We do have a few original things in there, Elio, which I hope some of the newer trailers get me more excited about that, because I love Pixar, but that last one just didn't really move it.
I'm not super revved for that one yet.
Yeah, and that is just the one little bummer note for me is, gosh, I wish there was some other new and exciting stuff, not based on anything at all in here, that I went, ooh, I'm really excited because I don't know what that is. I want to go into the unknown, to borrow some other Disney IP.
Hey.
But I don't like this, and I think it should prove to be a lucrative year for them. But it does feel a little safe.
To play the devil's advocate a little bit, though, to play the devil's advocate a bit, in a certain stretch, Disney put out several very original films, particularly in animation. Turning Red, which I think is a masterpiece.
Great movie.
Luca.
It's okay.
Soul.
Soul
Great.
was awesome.
Soul, right?
Soul was so good.
But it wasn't until they came out with Inside Out 2 that they made $1 billion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like Disney hasn't. I mean, they went through a stretch where they did almost nothing but originals for about a year and a half there, 2 years, where there was just original. And not a lot of them hit it. I mean, some of them were excellent quality, but not a lot. Like, God, even Elemental, which I think
Is incredible.
That
is such a good movie.
Yeah, that was its
So
return
good.
to making great original, like, in theaters. It should have done better.
Right?
It should have done
But
so much
even
better.
that, even though it started with a very small opening weekend and everybody thought it would flop, it got close to $500 million just because of word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That movie's so good. But when they made a sequel, that's when they made $1 billion, right? So in Disney's, I say devil's advocate a little bit here. You can say, hey, listen, we've listened to the fans. The fans have told us what they
Sure.
really want to go to the theaters to see is this. But hopefully things like Elio can take off, and every once in a while they keep peppering in these things. Because listen, even if they're IP and franchise obsessed, you got to put out originals to have new, because you got to have new IP. You have to
Exactly.
have new franchises. So they can't do that without these things.
And I understand it too. Post pandemic, I mean, we still are recovering financially, all these studios are still trying to get their footing.
Yeah.
The pandemic, the multiple strikes, everything. So I totally understand doing the quote unquote safe thing so that you can live another day and create more films and everything. It's a really, really fine line that these executives have to walk, you know? And I do ultimately give them quite a bit of credit, because it's really hard to go, hey, we're going to light this, we're not going to light that, in hopes of being able to keep your studio moving forward. That's a rough job.
What Disney announced today, the subscriber numbers for Disney Plus are way up.
Yeah, way
they're
up.
They're building a new park. Is it going to be in Dubai or the UAE?
Abu Dhabi, is that what I
It's
heard?
Abu Dhabi?
I don't know if that's right or not. But
One
yeah.
of the I mean, that's insane as well. They haven't built a new park in a long time. That must mean they've got, and it's going to be huge. It's going to be massive. So, you know, Disney, I guess, is on the upswing. And here's the thing. Don't we want to see good movies? Like,
No.
I know that I will
No.
have a satisfying experience with Avatar, Fire and Ash. And I know that I think I'm going to have a good experience with Tron Ares. So I want that. I mean, I don't want Disney to fail. I want them to make great stuff. And it looks like at least I never thought I'd be interested in seeing Lilo and Stitch as much as I am.
We're
But I
gonna
really want to
get
see that.
Mai Tais. We're gonna be business drunk.
And
Oh,
I-
Great.
we should get wasted.
For what?
Yeah, for
what?
Lilo and Stitch.
for this,
Oh,
but
I
I
could
feel the
listen to the
same way
show.
about Tron.
Nah.
I, like me, it's like, I wasn't, what was the last Tron movie called again?
Legacy.
Legacy.
Frankly, I didn't think Tron Legacy was all that good.
Looked beautiful.
It
Had
looked
great
beautiful,
soundtrack.
The soundtrack was great.
Story
Hot
was
Toys,
like whatever.
But, and so I'm like, yeah, they're making another
Those are
one.
probably awesome.
And then that trailer came out. I'm like, that music is killer. And if this tone of the trailer reflects
Psych.
the tone of the movie, I'm not saying it will be good.
Yeah.
Because I still have my doubts. But it
Could
looks
be.
way better than I thought it
It's like-
would.
A new Nine Inch Nails
Dude,
album because
it's
of it.
it's new, but it's like throwback Nine Inch Nails. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Bob Iger saying, listen, our upcoming slate at Disney is the best we've had since 2019, a year when they had, I believe it was $6 billion films in 1 year. Do you agree with him that this looks like it could be the best they've had in a while? And if so, which of the movies that he listed off are standing out to you the most? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, one of my big criticisms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe over the last number of years was that they have become homework. What I mean by that is, in the first three stages, or phases, I should say, of the MCU, every single movie was a valid entry point for a new fan. You've heard me say that before, right? Like, you could jump into Captain America Civil War having not seen anything else, and you'll miss some of the nuance, but you could just jump right in, and they always structure their movies in a way that you totally didn't feel lost. And like I said, every new movie was an entry point for a new fan. And I've said since then, it's become a little bit more convoluted, which has led Kevin Feige now, who I can only assume religiously watches the John Campea Show, said this comes to us from Comic Book Movie, quoting the Wall Street Journal. According to a recent Wall Street Journal report, Kevin Feige has come to feel that the MCU is a no new fans club, and has told his Marvel Studio colleagues that watching every new Marvel TV show and film has started to feel more like homework than entertainment. Where have I heard that before? Which I think is incredibly accurate. Of course, I think it's accurate because we've been saying that forever. And that may have led to a strategic shift, because a new report has come out that is suggesting that Kevin Feige and Marvel may really start separating. We heard Bob Iger hint at it, but they may really start separating their movies and TV world. It goes on to say this. In his latest newsletter, Jeff Snyder, who of course friend of the show, you see him on our show every once in a while, shares what he's heard about Marvel's new strategy, and he believes that going forward, quote, the upcoming Vision series will be the last Marvel series to feature major characters from the movies. Oh, you'll get mentions of major characters, like how Spider-Man, the Peter Parker version, was referenced in Daredevil Born Again during a speech where the newly elected Mayor Fisk mentions a man who dresses in a spider outfit while condemning costume vigilantes. There are going to be a whole lot more references like that in Marvel shows, but look for those shows to continue to be based around characters like Wonder Man, who arrives new to the MCU on Disney Plus in December, rather than Vision, a big screen character whose audiences are accustomed to paying to see. All right. This is how I think this kind of goes along with and fits in with what Kevin Feige was just acknowledging. That the MCU's kind of become, because the way everything's interconnected, has become a no new fans club. You're either in the club or you can't come in now. It's too late. They have hinted before. I remember a year and a half ago, Rob, Marvel started dropping hints that they were going to start to create a little bit more of a gap between their movies and their television. Some said the television will become more street level. I didn't know that. I ever kind of bought into that. But here's the thing, by creating a distinction, even if it's a thin distinction, between their movie properties and the stuff that happens on TV, it means that, like, one of the problems that the Marvels faced was that you're looking at, if you're a movie fan, you're watching the trailers for the Marvels, you get the feeling you're supposed to know who two of the three main people are, but you have no idea who they are. Mm. And the trailer implies you're supposed to know who they are. Well, I'm lost. I've never seen this Photon. I've never seen this Ms. Marvel. I'm completely lost. I mean, I know Captain Marvel, and I think that was one of, there were other problems, but one of the problems that movie faced. And honestly, I think this would be a good move. If Jeff's report is correct, and you have to take that with a grain of salt, but if it's correct, and that does seem to go along with what Kevin Feige was just saying, I think it would be a very smart move on Marvel's part to start to create more distinction. I mean, yes, you can still say they happen in the same world, but nary do they interconnect, nary do they cross over. Hence, you can have Wilson Fisk implementing martial law in New York, and then we go into the Thunderbolts, and everything looks fine in New York. Listen, I would go one step further. Personally, with all the problems of the old DCEU, they had it right. Television was television, movies was movies. And regardless of that one the two flashes met in that one moment, forget that. They kept them completely separate. The Arrowverse was the Arrowverse. The stuff going on in the Zack Snyderverse was the Zack Snyderverse. By the way, Zack Snyder's appearance in the new episode of The Studio and the little joke he pokes at himself, gold. Well done, Zack. Anyway, I honestly, personally think I've always felt they should do that. Like, just if you want to create a Disney Plus Marvel universe and keep the movie universe to the movie universe. But listen, if they can figure out a way to have that thin veil where, okay, they do happen in the same universe, but they are kept completely isolated stories from each other, I think that would be the right move. I don't know, Chris, is that an overreaction on my part? Do you believe that they're going to do that? Should they even do it? How do you see this?
I really liked what they did initially on Netflix, right? Of referring to events, having some kind of connections, but being able to tell their own stories, especially in that kind of boots on the ground kind of way that were more humanistic stories about towns or people or things of that nature, not the intergalactic battles. I do think we definitely have hit a wall in that you have to know too much when you go to a Marvel movie. And we've talked about this ad nauseum. It's something we discuss all the time. And it's something that keeps a lot of my non-comic book, superhero friends away from these films, or has me give them a rundown of stuff so they don't feel dumb before it happens. And I don't love that. Right? I love geeking out with people. I don't want someone to feel like, hey, am I not smart enough to go see this movie? Do I not know enough about this? That's not a great way to appeal to an audience of, well, you don't know. It's a gatekeeping thing. And that's the cool thing about fans and fandom is we should always be welcoming new people into it. Why would I not want someone to love the stuff I love? Why would I not be excited about telling them about how cool Photon is? Like, that's the whole point of going to your local brick and mortar and going, oh, have you read this week's issue? Holy shit, man, you are in for a treat. That's what these movies should be like, too, is you should have a fun time and you should get a little fun extra bit, right? Like some of those Easter eggs we saw in Daredevil or in Deadpool and Wolverine, where if you're a comic book fan, you'd be like, oh, that's cool. That's really neat that it's there. But it doesn't add to the overall story. It's just a fun little thing just for you. I think these stories should be accessible for everybody, and having it so you don't have to watch 4 8-episode series as well as all of the movies and everything, I think opens it up to a lot of people. I like the continuity in that we're building on stories and things like that, building to these big events like we had with Endgame. But ultimately, I feel like it should be I went and saw a bunch of movies that I want to keep watching, as opposed to I had to go watch every single thing Marvel took out, even if it's not to my taste. Because the other thing about these comics, just because they're comic book stories doesn't mean they're all the same kind of story. You might like one character more than the other. You might not want to follow Moon Knight. You might not want to follow Echo. And you shouldn't have to watch a show that you're not interested in. So 3 movies from now, you can kind of know what's going on.
Yeah. Well said. Rob, what do you think about this whole thing?
Well, I would echo my esteemed colleague's
thank you.
assessment about this. The thing about, I've been a comic reader most of my life, and I've always liked it when we got a mini series about a big character that would tell a story that might not have somewhere to fit in the grand continuity of things, but it was still a valid story that gave you insight into that character, like when a great creator had something to say. And I always thought that for the TV shows, it wasn't so much about being, I think they should have adopted a policy. It doesn't matter whether it's a character you don't know or a character from the movies, but tell a story that you don't necessarily need to watch to enjoy the big MCU. Like you could read Crisis on Infinite Earths in just the 12 issues, or you could read all the different crossovers if you wanted to. But it didn't hamper your enjoyment of the main storyline if all you read was the 12 issues of Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I think, like, look, with Falcon and Winter Soldier, they could have told a story about Sam Wilson and Bucky that didn't even touch on Captain America per se. But here's 2 guys that are coming back from the blip. They're dealing with grief. They're dealing with the fact that their best friend, Steve Rogers, decided to go back in time, and they've kind of left, they're both adrift without him, and then dealing with their friendship and how did the 2 of them come together and have some adventure that made them better people. That could have been great to watch as a side story that didn't necessarily have to connect.
I genuinely found it so interesting that Sam Wilson couldn't get a bank loan.
Well, yeah, all
Like,
that stuff.
that
And
kind
That
of
was
stuff
actually really
was
interesting. Yeah.
just
because
fascinating.
it dealt with the post blip, so it dealt with the overall story was about what happened, but you could deal with again, you could have delved into guilt or what happens when your best friend is missing, and maybe that's not what people want to see in a superhero story, but they still have to team up and kick ass as Falcon and the Winter Soldier. No Avengers. How are these 2 guys going to have their own little small team dynamic? That was a mistake. I think it can work. The problem is make the TV shows watchable without the bigger picture.
You know what did it well? And it's a show I didn't even like. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. What Agents, because you never had to watch a single episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because there was never any consequences of the show in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies.
Right.
But what they would do is, here's a great example of one. After Thor the Dark World, after Thor the Dark World, the first episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after Thor the Dark World came out was just the agency, they're on cleanup duty after the big battle of the, right? And so in that way, they're like, see, we're in the same universe, but it didn't actually have any consequences on the movie universe. That's actually, I think, the right way for them to do it.
They did it with
Totally agree.
they also did it with Winter Soldier. So then when they realized Hydra was mostly infiltrated into Shield, then Agents of Shield had that kind of like civil war.
Yeah. So like the TV shows would reflect what's going on in the movies, but the movies never reflected anything that's going on in the TV shows. That might be a good way for them to approach it.
Also, I mean, another thing about all this is I couldn't look Moon Knight. I was so looking forward to it. I hated it. I just hated Moon Knight. But what they did in that show was they asked a bunch of questions about these Egyptian gods and eating the souls of people on the streets of Cairo. You're like, wait a minute, this has massive ramifications.
Right, it was too
to
big.
the bigger MCU story. Why are you doing that when the character of Moon Knight is a perfect character to exist as a street level character with mystical overtones?
Everything had to be big.
And it was just like, this annoyed the F out of me. I'm like, why am I watching this gobbledygook? Go back to the original Mensch Sienkiewicz run that I fell in love with. Not that you have to do what I say, but you turned it into
But it would help.
when you have Egyptian gods fighting over the pyramids of Giza, and you're like, well, does this have any ramifications with the Celestials and the gods of Asgard? What is going on here, and why am I watching this? I still feel that way, but I bought the hot toy.
Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? Kevin Feige's saying, like, right now, Marvel is the no new fans club because there's just too much homework that has to be done. A lot of that has to do with television. compound that and piggyback that on with what Jeff Snyder's saying is that the new direction of Marvel is going to be don't have so much of the movie stuff crossing over with the Disney Plus show or vice versa. Good move, bad move. How do you guys see it? Whatever your thoughts are, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. Listen, we still got a few things we got to talk about, including Seth Rogen's The Studio. No surprise, just got renewed for a second season. We're going to talk about that. Also, we've got our first reactions from people who have seen the new Superman movie. And they're really good, but y'all explain why you got to take those with a little bit of a grain of salt. And last night's episode of Andor. Episodes of Andor. I'll say it, I put it in the title. It is the greatest 2.5 hours of Star Wars since the original trilogy. I can't wait to talk about it. We're going to talk about that stuff and a few things more. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second and thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Hungryroot. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Hungryroot. Okay, so I'm sure you guys can all relate to this. Spring hits and suddenly life goes from like 0 to 100. Busy season is officially in full swing over here. And honestly, who's got time to go grocery shopping? That's where Hungryroot comes in. See, because Hungryroot is like having your own personal shopper. I told them my goals and they started curating groceries for me that actually fit my life. Be it smoothies, snacks, salad kits, even ready to eat meals. All clean ingredients, no artificial junk. This week, I got the grilled turkey tenderloin with pesto grilled veggies and it was amazing. And I got my usual protein-packed snacks. It's like they're learning my taste better than I even know myself. And the best part is, I don't have to waste time driving to the grocery store and wandering the aisles. That's time I can spend doing literally absolutely anything else. Guys, I love Hungryroot. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Campea and use the code Campea. That's hungryroot.com/Campea, code Campea to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/Campea, code Campea. And thank you to our friends at Hungryroot for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Seth Rogen's The Studio is one of the great surprises this year. This show has been, I mean, the concept sounds good, but the show has just exceeded all my expectations. And last night's new episode was no exception. But it was always kind of being looked at as kind of like a one-shot parody of the Hollywood business. But it's been so good and so successful that according to IndieWire, The Studio has been renewed for season 2 by Apple TV+. It writes the following. Who's ready for a sequel to the Kool-Aid movie? The Studio, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg's hit satire that has captured Hollywood's attention for its scarily on-the-nose depiction of the film industry, has been renewed for a second season by Apple TV+, the streamer announced on Tuesday. The renewal for season 2 of The Studio arrives just before the airing of episode 8 this Wednesday, which actually came out last night, on Apple TV+, and the first season has 2 more episodes after that. This week, we'll see Rogen's studio head Matt Remick try to get Zoe Kravitz to thank him in her Golden Globes Awards acceptance speech. Again, the episode came out last night, and it is awesome. Gonna spoil one joke. Don't care, because I just want to say it so badly. I alluded to it earlier. They're at the Golden Globes, and Zack Snyder himself comes out to present an award. He goes, for those of you who just think the Golden Globes are too short, stay tuned next week when I release my 6-hour cut in black and white of the Golden Globes. And I was just, well done, Zach. I thought that was really funny. Anyway, listen, you've heard us wax poetic on our show about The Studio. Like it manages to capture the satire like I've never seen it done before, be incredibly oddly accurate to how real life Hollywood works, and have the uncomfortableness of The Office. All like literally last night when I was watching The Studio, I was telling the guys here, I literally at one point jumped up out of the couch, covered my eyes, went, and walked out of the room because what was happening on screen was so uncomfortable. And I mean that in the best way possible.
I used to do that with Curb all the time.
Oh, Curb is another one that is just like, that gives you that feeling. So, I mean, listen, I really thought they were going to do this as a, hey, we've done it. We've done the satire thing now. But I'll tell you what, as every episode comes, I'm not feeling the novelty of it wear off. As they touch on everything from casting to Golden Globes to getting a pitch with a director. Like there's so many Hollywoodisms to cover.
Yeah.
So I am thrilled that they're doing another season. Rob, you heard that they're doing now. It's officially greenlit. They're going to do a season 2 of the studio. What do you think?
You know, when I watched the first episode of the show, I was a little dubious because I love movies about Hollywood. You know, whether it's SOB, whether it's the stuntman, the player, you know, call it what you want. Day of the Locust.
Wag the dog.
Wag the dog. What Just Happened with Robert
yeah.
De Niro that Barry Levinson directed, which is, it's painful to watch, but great. So when I watched this, I thought, okay, it's a broad satire. But what I've liked with each episode, like you just pointed out, they go into very specific things. Like the episode about the pediatric oncologist.
With the doctors.
What was interesting, when I used to go home to Seattle, nobody cared about anything that was going on in the movie business. Like even when I had a movie come out and I went to the Cannes Film Festival to the market, nobody cared. They're like, dude, let's go snowboarding. Who cares? Nobody cares. And when you move out of the entertainment world, if you're not in the movie business, the only people that care about the movie business are people that are in the movie business and YouTube pundits. That's it. The rest of the world does not care. And I thought that was such a brilliant way to show that in that particular episode. Then the casting episode that came after that, and the whole thing about
the casting episode with Ice Cube was so good.
Because then suddenly it became a show that anybody outside of the entertainment business could understand. You know, and
by the way, Ann's sister was in that episode.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
And they've done such a great job. It's not just about Hollywood. It's skewering our entire society, modern culture. And that's taken it to another level. And the level, like you said, of cringe. I am not an Office. I've seen 2 episodes because of you. I'm relatively still an Office virgin. But the way you've described The Office to me is kind of what I imagine watching the studio is. I mean, I just sit there, again, rolled up in a ball. Like, oh my God, I can't, which I love. I can't wait to watch the Golden Globe episode.
It's so good, man. It's so good. Anyway, Chris, you heard I know you've been a fan of this series so far. But, I mean, it seems like it was set up to tell the joke. And like one season would do it. Right move to do a second season. Are you excited about that? How do you feel about it?
It's absolutely the right move. Between this and Severance, Apple was having record numbers for their streaming service. It's such a funny show. It lambasts Hollywood in such a wonderful, wonderful way. And I love the quote that's used in the Hollywood Reporter of "We can't wait to see which of our colleagues will panic about their personal stories being shared." I love that, of just oh no, are they talking about me? And I think that's a great element to this show too, of taking from these real life experiences, from taking so many of Seth Rogen's own personal stories too, of coming up in this industry and going, oh, we're going to talk about that now. And we're going to have actual people come play themselves to do this ridiculous.
I just had this flashback of Urkel and they're going, did I do that?
Yeah, every single person watching going, oh no, that's me.
Until people in the next season would be like, I hope they talk about me.
Yeah,
then it's going to become a badge of honor in Hollywood if it hasn't already.
Some weird narcissistic,
it's gonna be, like
fuel.
the SNL kind of mocking, right? You've made it if you've been parodied on SNL.
100%.
You'll make it if you've been parodied on the studio.
Yeah.
And listen, he's having no problems getting, like, that episode last night was the most cameos they've had in the show so far. And I like, everybody's going to want to have a cameo in this show. I think everybody in the business is going to want to have a cameo in the show. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think? They've just announced that the studio is going to get a second season. I personally couldn't be happier about it. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? In an online space that is always filled with fake test screening reports that are 99% of the time always bullshit, we have verified, confirmed, first people who have seen the Superman movie, and they say it's great. You do have to take it with a grain of salt that they work for Warner Brothers, though. This comes to us from the folks over at Superhero Hype. Warner Brothers CEO shares promising reaction to James Gunn's Superman. Now, it does need to be pointed out that these people have not worked on the Superman movie. This is not their movie. This is James Gunn's, but still. The CEO and chairpersons of Warner Brothers, Pam Abdy and Michael DeLuca, who, by the way, are both riding high right now. They're celebrating a streak of success that has been long overdue for them. Recently appeared on the Smartless podcast to talk about Superman and what they felt after watching it for the first time. DeLuca praised James Gunn for his work on the upcoming movie and said, "We've seen an early cut of Superman, and I don't want to bury the lead. There's a lot of marketing about to roll out ahead of its release, but Gunn really understood the assignment. His heart's in the right place, his aim is true, and we're really excited about this new version of DC." Abdi also joined in by referring to Gunn as great. DeLuca further described Gunn as a unique director and stated, "I used to chase James as a producer when he did Slither," still my all-time favorite James Gunn movie, by the way, "and started with his low-budget movies. He's really unique, and I think DC's in great hands with the two of them." All right, so again, first thing I want to verify for people, because there's still some confusion about this. Pam Abdi and Mike DeLuca are not involved with DC Pictures. DC is a completely separate arm of the overall Warner Brothers Discovery thing, and James Gunn and Peter Safran report directly to the acts of Zaslav. They don't work with Abdi and DeLuca. The only place where Abdi and DeLuca get involved is as their distribution arm, because Warner Brothers will be the distribution arm of the DC films, so they're going to be distributing it. Now look, the reason I still think this is interesting is because normally when we've seen this happen with Marvel and Disney, when they have a movie coming out that they're not all that amped on, they just don't talk about it, right? They don't say, obviously they don't say bad things about it. And if a reporter asks them, say, "Oh, we're excited." But other than that, they just won't talk about it. They just won't say anything. DeLuca and Abdi, having not been involved with the making of Superman, at least volunteering, coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, we've seen it. James Gunn gets it. This new DC is going to be great." While you still have to take that, admittedly, with a giant boulder-sized grain of salt. Because, I mean, of course, they're involved with Warner Brothers. There's clearly bias. There is. I still found it interesting that they would volunteer and want to talk about it. Because, again, we've seen with some bigger studios like Disney and whatnot, sometimes they'll just stay quiet about it and just not say anything. Anyway, so is this huge news? No. But I still think it's interesting. Anyway, Chris, you see that Abdi and DeLuca are talking about they've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to be really excited about it, even though they didn't have any part of making it. Anything to take away from there? Something? Nothing? Where did you see it?
I mean, I feel like you gotta say that you're excited about it when it's your product. Other films come to mind that everyone was very, very excited about. The Flash, which you all enjoyed more than me. I super did not like that movie. And I tried real hard, guys. I tried to go in there being like, you know what, Michael Keaton? You know what, Supergirl? Let's go. Even the tomato aisle scene, I was like, this is promising, but oof. So I feel like a lot of times the execs and the people in power do have to have that lovely little PR statement. That being said, Pam and Mike are on a big hot streak right now, and I do think this film looks very promising and everything. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I also don't really take the word of, the execs on like, yeah, it's a really great product. Of course you think so. You got to sell it to me.
Yeah, and again, take it with a giant grain of salt. Anyway, Rob, you heard their comments on that. What do you think?
Well, I mean, even though they're technically DC Studios is detached, Warner Brothers is still the overarching
Still the fan
studio. And they're not going to say, I think Mike DeLuca is actually sincere in what he said, because they have a lot riding on this, because they have another movie in production already. They're moving forward. They've got the Lantern series in production as well. So there's two other big films, or one film and one TV series following Superman. They bet a lot. Look, they're all in on this. And I think it's been a long time since I've seen a studio as all in on anything as they are on the DC Studios and Safran and James Gunn's leadership. So, and they've been pretty steadfast in their support of what's going on there. And of course, we as fans are looking at everything they do with a microscope. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people out there, it's weird, that want them to fail, which I think is bizarre. I don't think they will. I mean, when has James Gunn ever really failed anything? But I do think they're sincere in this. And I think that what Mike DeLuca is even responding to, if I could read between the lines, is that this Superman movie that we're getting is a different experience than any of the superhero movies that we've been getting for the last 25 years. And I've always believed that this is his more fantastical, more DC Silver Age take, at least what I've come to understand, is going to be something that we haven't seen. And I would imagine it's going to put a smile on people's faces in a way that they can't yet understand until they experience it.
I would say too, though, like their comments were very measured. honestly.
Yeah.
Sure.
I
They're not being
rem-
crazy hype men, but
No, look, I remember when Sony was about to release The Amazing Spider-Man 2, we had execs over there saying, "Oh, heads over here are giddy. It's our Dark Knight." That's a quote.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Woof.
these are measured by that standard.
sure.
And it was not. By the way, I just want to point out one of our live viewers, Marcus Y, said, speaking of Superman, saying, "I heard the end of the movie is a metaphor for losing a childhood cousin." Which, if you know, you know. Anyway, and just to clear something up, just so you understand, like some people, I saw somebody running, it was like, what do you mean it's not under Warner Brothers? Think about it like this: Warner Brothers Picture Group and DC Films. Think of to compare it to Disney, where you have Lucasfilm and you have Marvel. They are, and separately, you also have Disney Motion Pictures, which is a completely separate thing. And so that's how it's kind of structured. Like Kevin Feige has no authority over Lucasfilm and its films. Abdi and DeLuca don't have any authority over DC. There, it's a completely separate branch. But Warner Brothers Pictures is still the distributor, the distribution arm of it. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that goes. Anyway, guys, question is for you: what do you think about this? You can't get too excited about, people in the same studio saying that, oh, this new movie's great. You can't get too excited about that. But I still think it's interesting. Instead of avoiding the topic of the thing, they dove right into it. Anyway, how much do you take away from it? Very little, nothing at all, a little bit? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this. I think Andor Season 1 is the greatest thing that Star Wars has done since the original trilogy, right? Like there's Star Wars, Empire, Return of the Jedi, way up here, and then there's everything else. But of everything else, I think Andor has been the best thing they've done. Season 2 has been really good, but quite frankly, to me, a little underwhelming. Like I love Episode 3, I loved Episode 6. I liked it. I've liked it and enjoyed it overall. I have. I think it's good. But it hasn't lived up to Andor Season 1 for me. Until last night, when we got to watch Episodes 7, 8, and 9. And I will tell you now that this was the best 2.5 hours of Star Wars since I walked out of watching Return of the Jedi. This was the absolute pinnacle of Star Wars storytelling to me. I could, like, headlines like this one too. I love this headline. Andor Season 2, Episodes 7 through 9. I thought Andor couldn't get any better. I was incredibly wrong. This was not just the greatest Star Wars storytelling I've seen in 30 years. This was some of the best storytelling I've seen on television, period, in a while. I was enthralled from the opening moments of Episode 7 right through to the closing moments. Please point that gun away from me. Right to the closing moments of Episode 9. A lot of people are talking about Episode 8 and the massacre on Gorman. And it was awesome. And it was, Jonathan Voico referred to it as Les Mis in space,
Yeah.
which I said to him, it was kind of like Les Mis. And Jonathan's like, I literally called it Les Mis in space. But then you get into Episode 9, which is a completely different drama going on with everything about Mon Mothma making her speech and getting her out of the Senate. And that whole thing, by the time Episode 9 ended and the credits rolled, I remember taking a huge breath. And I remember thinking to myself, when did I breathe last?
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, I don't remember when I took my last breath because the credits started rolling. Like, it was peak Star Wars. I have not felt this giddy. I have not felt this enthusiastic. I have not felt this overwhelming joy of being a Star Wars fan like I did watching that 2.5 hours of Andor last night. I have completely changed my mind. Disney, back whatever Spanish bullion truck you need to up to Tony Gilroy's house, and you keep him in the family, because this is the new standard. And I don't care. Mandalorian is going to suck compared to this. I haven't seen the movie yet. Maybe it'll be Academy Award winning. But I'll tell you right now, I don't have high hopes that Mandalorian and Grogu is going to compare very well to Andor. And it's going to be very, very different. Andor has a very different tone and everything. It's apples and oranges, I understand. But this is the new standard. This is it. And we haven't even had Jedis or lightsabers or anything like that. Just true, riveting, amazing writing, drama with your fists clenched. And I can't even talk straight right now. This was one of the greatest viewing experiences I've had in years. Just sitting down and watching that 2.5 hours last night.
Oh, we're definitely getting a Golden Globe nomination for this one.
Oh, this is going to win. This is going to win. And Matt will get thank you'd. This is, I can't imagine, like, you know me. The last couple of weeks, I've been like, yeah, it was good. The Andor's chapter 1, they were good. They were good. I'm a little, holy shit. This was everything I've wanted Star Wars to be. And you know what? Here's the thing. I remember watching the first couple of episodes of Rebels when Rebels first came out. And while I was not this enthusiastic, I remember saying, me and Harloff were on the phone, and I remember saying to Harloff, this is the first time in a long time that I've really felt like I was watching Star Wars. Like, the prequels didn't do that for me. The like, even as good as some of the stuff we've had, I just said, when I was watching Rebels, this is the first time in a long time I really feel like I'm watching Star Wars. And I meant that in a really good way. And then last night was, again, the first time in ages that I really, really felt that. And I was telling Rob that when I was watching the Senate episode, I felt like I was watching the history. I felt like I was watching Star Wars history happening. Like, everything that was happening was vital and important. Even though it was not, there weren't, capital class ships fighting over the planet. No. It was intimate.
Yeah.
It was consequential. It was big yet small. It was masterful Star Wars storytelling. And I don't know how the hell they're going to follow this up next week with BBY1. I don't know how they're going to do it, but all I can say is I'm going to be counting the hours. Anyway, Rob, you had a chance to watch. You and I were texting back and forth during it, actually. You had a chance to watch the new episodes of Andor last night. What was your takeaway with it?
Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back changed my life. And I sort of was growing up with them. And I know you feel differently about this, but I thought Return of the Jedi I expected Star Wars to grow up with me. And now I realized I just missed 40 years. Now, Star Wars Andor is where I'm at. Like, it finally caught up to where I was as I moved through my life. Because, look, the best fiction, and especially the best fantasy science fiction, you still have to have characters that we as humans on Earth now relate to. And I feel that the problem that I've had with Star Wars is it's leaned way too heavily into fantasy, and it's spun off into oblivion. Where the great thing about the original trilogy is Han, Luke, Leia, even to a certain extent R2 and 3PO, we as viewers identify with them. Luke's a farm boy looking out at the suns,
A dreamer.
wondering, going, can I get away from this place? There's got to be something better in my life. And Han Solo is the cool guy we want to hang out with, and Obi-Wan Kenobi's the weird uncle who's a veteran of foreign wars. And so we had things that was our way into the Star Wars universe. This whole show, I mean, Gorman is essentially France when the Nazis now have marched in, and the way the Empire ginned up its own resistance to fuel so they could have a
And
reason.
its propaganda campaign.
To move in and take over. It was so smart. It was so well done. But when all of these threads got pulled together, the way they're dealing with people, yes, it's taking place in the Star Wars universe, but those people, I got it. I believed in what was going on, and you were completely with them. And other people would say, well, Rob, where's the Star Wars of it all? Quietly, Andor shows it had a better understanding of the Force than anything we've seen after Return of the Jedi. From the beginnings of Star Wars, it's like, well, nobody knows what the Force is. Luke didn't know what the Force was. Han didn't know what the Force was. It's
midichlorians. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's all gone. Nobody knew what the Force was anymore because it's kind of been forgotten. There are no more Jedi, but the Force surrounds us and binds us. It's always been around us. It's part of the universe. So this idea that you have to be full of midichlorians to use the Force is not what Yoda taught and not what Ben Kenobi taught, because the only movies that understood the Force our Star Wars and Empire. And now finally, we saw that Force healer. She didn't even really know, like you said, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But she is part of the Force that surrounds her and binds her and knows how to use it. But she didn't study. She probably studied Force healing, but she knows what she knows. She walks out and meets Cassian and doesn't know why. She's like, I'm drawn to you. I don't know what it is about you. You don't even know what it is about you. But you are strong in the Force, and you don't even know it. To the point when I'm going to walk and let me see if this works. He doesn't know what she's talking about. Like, well, I don't even know what's going on. He doesn't know what the Force is. And it was beautiful.
Well, destiny was surrounding him.
It was so amazing.
It's so much better than, oh, you're part of a lineage of peoples, and that's why you have access to this magical superpower. No, they're just so not interesting to just have it be tied to blood or cells or something of that nature.
Have a midichlorian outbreak. Get
Yeah.
Skyrizzy.
Hey!
Sky Rizzy.
Side effects
It's
later.
everything.
To your point with that, I had to rewind because I wanted to hear her again. She made that really poignant comment that most people carry on baggage from their past, and it builds. He moves forward and collects as he moves.
Yeah.
He has such a directed purpose in the Force.
And because she understood that about him, and that's what the Force does. I mean, now the Force has become a
Skywalker
fantasy
Izzy.
trope, man. I loved it so much.
And listen, I think one of the things for me, and again, it's just too hard, and it was so important in the show that it's hard not to talk about it. But Senator Mon Mothma's speech in the Senate
This is all I want to talk about.
could have absolutely just been directly spoken in the U.S. government today. When she talks about there is such a chasm now between this body and truth anymore. And you know that the moment Mon Mothma finished her speech, Senator Palpatine put out a tweet saying she's a total loser. And
By the way, this was filmed 2 years ago.
She's
Yeah,
been
and it
mostly wrong about everything.
yeah, she's always wrong about everything. She's a total loser.
It's not true. It's fake news.
Again,
Also,
so
Taylor
it felt,
was in this
and you're right,
episode.
it was filmed 2 years ago, and it hit us. So, but the drama that went on, just about number one, keeping her on the air, like just getting the speech done, and then getting her out was this entirely new drama, and it was like they just found a way of running down a hallway. Was like some of the most tense moments I've felt watching television in a while. Like it was just, oh God, it was so good. It was so good.
There's something else that this show has also done. This show has made the Empire truly frightening.
Yes.
And they started in the first season. The sound of TIE fighters have become terrifying.
They did do
And
the
when
first
you-
season on that hillside.
Yeah, on the hillside,
Yeah.
when the TIE fighter came in
You're
Aldani,
like, oh!
Yeah.
when you saw TIE fighters starting to fly over the
You already-
square,
in
yeah.
Gorman,
You already knew it
and
was too late.
They kept coming. I mean, every time you heard that sound, and you sometimes heard them off in the distance where you didn't even see them. Unbelievable.
I was wondering if bombers were going to come in, TIE bombers or
Oh
something.
my God, it was so. And then when they finally unleashed the K2SO, and you saw what they were really capable of. This show is so smart. It's so smart.
Well, the real genius, I think, here too is it's not mustache twirling villains. The Empire's filled with humans who are deeply uncomfortable with what is happening, who are deeply uncomfortable with the
Do
choices
you
that the
hear
Empire is
the
making, but
people
are still
sing?
going along with it, right? And you see them going, "Oh, this is an atrocity, but I'm in too deep."
Yeah.
And that's a much more compelling story because that is the kind of thing that would happen in
Yeah.
any type of rebellion,
I'm
any type
trapped.
of political thing. Exactly. And the line though of it's the death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. I had to pause and just sit there for a while. And then be like, okay, I gotta keep going. It's so good. It's so good. This is brilliant television.
Yeah, again, just so well written, so well executed, and the fact that we get to say those words about a Star Wars property is. And then listen, I'm not saying. Don't get me wrong. I don't want all my Star Wars to be like Andor.
Right, I don't either.
I love the high fantasy and adventure, and yeah, I want that Star Wars
Yeah.
too.
I love that I can have this and Skeleton Crew.
Yes,
Like,
yes,
that's wild.
and but it's just that, my God, what Tony Gilroy and team have done with Andor, again, just puts to shame everything that has been Star Wars since Return of the Jedi. It's just another level.
Well, you know
so
what's,
good.
what's interesting to me is they've really looked at the original trilogy. I mean, I think that has been their bellwether or whatever, that looking at the original trilogy, because I keep harking back to that first scene on the Death Star. You know, until this battle station is fully operational, we are vulnerable. The Rebel Alliance is too well equipped. And you see the bickering. And then Grand Moff Tarkin comes in and says, I've shut down the Imperial Senate.
Yeah, we were just
You
talking
know,
about that.
The Emperor has dissolved the Senate.
Yeah, with Vader, and don't be so proud of this technological terror
that
you
you've
constructed.
constructed.
And then your sad devotion to that ancient religion has not helped you conjure up the stolen data tapes. That is the entire. I'm sure that Tony Gilroy, like when Nicholas Meyer had never seen Star Trek before and came on, I have to do Star Trek 2. What am I going to do? Tony Gilroy watches Star Wars and he's like, oh, where did this empire come from? How did such an empire rise? And how is it analogous to human history? I mean, that's how great storytelling begins, and that's how great sequels, and that's how great spin-offs and offshoots happen. And he took it to its logical conclusion. I'll bet you that we're going to see a lightsaber next week.
Maybe.
I would be surprised. Well, listen, I think we're going to see the death of Luthen next week.
Yeah, and that's when we're going to see a lightsaber.
And I think that's right. I think that's where we're going to see a lightsaber.
We're going to see a
come out.
lightsaber next week.
We're going to find out Luthen is a very jaded, angry Jedi.
Yes.
So I don't know. Anyway, guys, we could sit here and talk for hours about last night's episodes of Andor. Question is for you. What did you think about it? I mean, it would be hard for you to have liked it more than I did, I admit, but how much did you enjoy it? Or maybe it didn't work for you. I mean, all art's subjective. Maybe it didn't work for you. That's perfectly okay. But whatever you guys thought about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, it's time for us to move on to the most important part of our show, which is, of course, taking your comments and questions. But before we do, we're going to bid adieu, as they would say on Gorman, to Chris Carr.
We are the Gore. The galaxy's watching.
To Robert Meyer Burnett.
Oh, man, I can't wait to see next week.
Next week, I am booking. I think I might even cancel the John Campea Show next Tuesday. I'm just going to be sitting in a meditative
That's
state,
perfect.
waiting for the show to start. Anyway, guys,
I won't be here, so you should.
that's right. All right. Now, before we get to your questions, we're going to take another quick moment here and thank another sponsor of today's episode, our friends at Stitch Fix. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Stitch Fix. Guys, you know I love movies, but you also know I have absolutely no fashion sense, and I absolutely hate shopping for my clothes. But thankfully, I have found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. With Stitch Fix, I get a stylist who understands my style, size, and budget, and they do all the shopping for me. Because look, shopping and figuring out style can be overwhelming, especially for somebody like me. When it comes to getting dressed, I don't even know where to start, to be honest. That's why I love having a Stitch Fix stylist. They really know what works for me. I get pieces that make me look great, and it's a real confidence boost. You just give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences. You get to order boxes when you want and how you want, no subscription required. They send you personalized pieces, and the fit is always on point. No stores, no crowds, no stress. Just personalized looks that you will love. So guys, make style easy. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Campea. That's stitchfix.com/Campea.
And thank you so much to Stitch Fix for making this episode of the John Campea Show possible. If you haven't already, guys, honestly, check out Stitch Fix. That is a really, really great service. They work wonderfully, and all of your events, all those weddings you're going to go to this summer, yuck. Go use Stitch Fix. They're going to help hook you up. Make you look nice.
That's right.
All right. Jonathan, now are you queued up for John
Chris
and your
saved
cues?
me.
I'm cute. I'm cute.
Chris filled in the gap there. Thank you, Chris. All right, guys. With all that down, let us now move on to the important stuff, which is, of course, your comments and questions. So, Jonathan, what we got up first?
Amin says, with all the trauma and dark moments he has had in his life, I think Kingpin's Void Room would have been the classroom where he had to watch those kids sing "We Built This City" on rock and roll.
I don't know. Like, it's always nice when you get, this is one of the things that Marvel often does well. Sometimes they go too far one way or the other, but what they often do well is like when things get heavy, lighten it. When things get too light, something heavy. And like draw that little built this city whole montage thing that went on there, that running gag, that was a really good thing.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Oscar says, hey, John, quick question, the behind the scenes question. Which streaming software do you use for the show? Like, how do you set up a live stream, exploring some options for video presentations?
We used to use, oh, damn it, what was the name of, and we had the control center for it too.
Wirecast.
Wirecast. We used to use Wirecast, which is great. Wirecast is really good. It's really good. I, at one point, just a couple of years ago, made the switch over to OBS, which is, of course, the most popular streaming software out there. Now, of course, we have other techniques and things that we do uniquely than what a lot of people do and how we use OBS, but OBS is free, and that's the software that we use.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's next?
Be cool, Yolanda says, I just realized Louis Pullman, the actor who plays Bob in both Thunderbolts and Top Gun Maverick, is Bill Pullman's son. Between him, Jack Quaid, John David Washington, and Maya Hawke, the 90s are back. We are so back, baby.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've talked about him being Bill Pullman's son a lot, but, I mean, listen, nobody likes nepotism.
Except me.
Right.
Except me.
Man.
I take it all in, baby.
But
It's a moment of pure truth right there.
they call those in Hollywood like the Nepo babies.
Yeah.
But I ain't got no problem with it when those kids show that they've got the
If
goods.
you've got the talent, I don't care.
Maya Hawke's got the goods. Jack Quaid clearly has the goods. John David Washington brings the goods. And Louis Pullman, man, after watching him in this movie, he's got the goods. So as long as you show that you got it, and you deserve that place, I have no problem.
We even were just talking about The Longest Walk, right? And that was Philip Seymour Hoffman's son.
That's right. Yeah. Now we'll see
We'll
how
see.
great he is in
He's
it.
been good in. He was good in the other two things I've seen him in.
Yep.
So,
All right, what's next?
we just read that one. We got Cast Ray as Blade. Says, I believe Feige is purposely creating conflict with the Avengers in both the MCU and real life, just like Valentina and Marvel forcing a new Avengers on us. Fans in the MCU alike reject them as B-Vengers. It's a clever move. Let's see how it all pays off.
Well, I mean, I think that was evident, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very evident.
Just by the
we're all
fact that
self-aware of that.
They put on the newspaper headings and stuff like that too, because they knew that the general public was going to feel torn over the idea that this is the new Avengers. By the way, this is a very misleading. I was looking at one of the posters again, and one of the captions that has no powers, no heroes, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I'm like, actually,
Other
than Yelena,
they all have
powers.
Yeah.
You got 3 super soldiers, you got Ghost, and then before she bought it, you had Taskmaster.
Yeah.
I mean, they all had powers except Yelena. So yeah, anyway. All right, what's next?
JP worked at a cinema ever since Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Disney hasn't allowed us to and other chains to use passes, including passes for Disney films for the first 2 weeks. Sucks as I have to buy tickets for Disney stuff. Curious what you think. Well, if you're at AMC, get an A-list.
Yeah, A-list and you're golden. I don't know, man. Listen, I won't say which one because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But a general manager at an AMC theater, I saw a couple of my Marvel films too, like Disney films specifically, even in advance of press screenings, because they would have staff screenings at the theaters, and the general manager there would just invite me to come. Actually, there was a couple of general managers. So they did. So I don't know. Is that a new thing that Disney doesn't let movie theaters
Guess
do
it's
early
Wakanda
stuff?
Forever.
That's interesting. I mean, I hadn't heard that. I've not heard that, but if that's true, I guess maybe that's Disney trying to close off one more leak point
Yeah.
of things getting out. So
That
that would kind of make sense, I guess. All right, what's next?
We got Elizabeth who says, I like to see the Marvel MCU do a version of the Phantom movie. Who would you cast as Kit Walker the Phantom? I would cast a WWE star Cody Rhodes as Kit Walker the Phantom.
So you'd want to cast somebody who's not an actor in a leading role in a movie? That very rarely ever works out.
Now the
well.
Phantom, we're talking about like Billy Zane.
Yeah, you're talking about the Billy Zane one? Just go back and get Billy Zane again.
Oh man, that'd be great.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think the Phantom would work today.
It barely worked then.
Now, Well, it's questionable about whether it worked then. But I mean, then again, I didn't think Peacemaker would work, and it's one of my favorite things. Yeah, look, I don't think the Phantom would work today, and I don't give a crap. I don't do fan casting X actor and X role sort of stuff because it would all depend on how you wrote. I would definitely get an actor. If I was going to actually lead a movie
for a
and I was
lead,
serious about it being good, I wouldn't go get a wrestler. I'd go get an actor. Some wrestlers have been able to turn, but listen, it took Dwayne Johnson a lot of years to become a serviceable, true actor. It took John Cena years. It took Dave Bautista years. So there's a couple, but those are 3 guys out of 10,000 wrestlers over the past 20 or 30 years, right? So I don't know who I would get, but I know it wouldn't be a wrestler. It would be an actual actor is who I would go and get. All right, what's next?
I was going to say, John, I just saw Karate Kid for the first time last week. Oh, as in like the first Karate
original
Kid. Wow.
Karate Kid.
Okay.
It was one of those classic movies I'd never seen before. I have memories of still going to the Chinese theater to see that movie in the 80s. Do I need to watch Cobra Kai to get Legends? Also, what's an iconic movie you've never seen?
Look, having not seen Karate Kid Legends, I can't really answer that. My guess though is I don't think you need to watch Cobra Kai. It looks like there's really nothing Cobra Kai in it. If you wanted to watch something else before seeing it, though, see the Jackie Chan Karate Kid movie with Jaden Smith.
Because that is a direct
because
link.
This Karate Kid Legends is the merger of the original Karate Kid and the Jackie Chan Karate Kid, and they're putting the two together.
And if you've never seen the first Karate Kid, see Karate Kid 2 as well with Ralph Macchio. I like Karate Kid 2.
But I think, I mean, you're okay if you don't see it. For Karate Kid Legends, but I'd say if you're looking to watch something else to lead into Karate Kid Legends, watch the Jackie Chan, Jaden Smith Karate Kid, because that'll be more relevant, I think, to this.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
We got WP High Team. Love all that you do. I'm going to the BFI in London on Saturday to catch up a showing of Magnolia in 35 millimeter with Tom Cruise season leading up to MI8. What's some of your favorite character-driven Tom Cruise roles, and what's your thoughts on Magnolia? I
always like Magnolia. I remember about, I was going to say just a couple of years ago, but you know what? I think I was still at AMC, where we did a thing where I was talking about underrated Tom Cruise performances. Magnolia was right up at the top of my list. That's great. The other one for him that I honestly still don't think he gets enough credit for is Born on the 4th of July. His performance, and I don't think it's the greatest movie, but his performance in that, he might have gotten nominated for it, actually.
I think he did.
I think
his
so.
performance in that was fantastic, like absolutely fantastic. It showed he's not just a movie star, he's a great actor. And so that's one that really stands out to me. But Magnolia, you know what? I think he also got nominated for Magnolia. I think he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor in Magnolia. Did he not?
I have to look at that, but I think so.
Yeah, he did.
He did. He got nominated for
in
Best Supporting Actor.
2000,
Yep.
And then he got nominated for Best Actor
For Born on the 4th of July.
in 1990.
All right. What's next?
Ray with a $20 tip.
Thank you, Ray.
Hey guys, I've never read any Sentry. Just wondering if in the comics do people die and come back when the void turns you black, or are you even dying, or are they going another place? The void is different.
Yeah,
in the
it's not
comics.
done like that. It's not done. That's not a. No, void is this. He's just a nightmare. Right?
Yeah,
He could be the end of all reality sort of thing.
Exactly.
So they did it differently in the movie than they did in the comics.
Yeah,
for sure they did. So that was kind of, but I mean, the basic principle of it was this: nobody wants the void to get out. That's just the underlying message, right? So that's a big thing in the comics, that Bob's got to keep the void in check. And that's the same thing they brought out of the movies. How they expressed it is a little bit different than the comics, but you get the overall point. All right, what's next?
We got Anonymous says Mikko Rantanen scores a hat trick to save my Dallas Stars.
Yep, that was nail biting. That was nail biting, and it didn't look like they were going to pull it off, but they did, and good on them. All right, what's next?
Okay, first against the Gorilla. Wow, you won. My question is regarding acting credits in movies. Do you happen to know how actors get the word with and with their name? It happens with big names, big name actors. Is a contractual if they're not top billing, or is it like a sale, or is a sales thing? Always wondered. So like in credits, it'll be like, yeah,
Yeah,
and so and so.
my guess is it's a contractual thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're not, like it's just a way to highlight your guy. Like if you're an agent,
Right.
it's just a way to highlight your guy if they're not top billed.
Right.
So like if I'm trying to think of a good example of that, like David Harbour, for example, I think they did this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they did this in the credits for
Black Widow.
for Thunderbirds.
Or
Thunderbirds,
Thunderbolts. Yeah.
Thunderbirds, totally different.
Yeah.
Thunderbirds.
Where like they'll run through a bunch of the names. Like if they're not top billed, then they'll run through a bunch of the names. It goes with so and so, or
Yeah.
and or sometimes featuring, or sometimes they even say debuting so and so if it's a new actor or something like that. So yeah, I think most of the time that's a contractually negotiated thing. I'm sure it isn't all the time, but again, I could be wrong about that. But that's how I've always thought that was kind of handled.
Yeah, I've dealt with credits before, and we've had to make changes like that, and it'll be like, well, their agents are saying it has to be this, so can you change it?
Yep.
And then I have to go back and change
Makes sense.
it. Puerto Rican Nobody sends in a $20 tip.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate the support, dude.
I grew up with Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, but it's crazy to me knowing that James Cameron pitched Spider-Man to the studio, but they went with Raimi. After the success of Terminator 2 and Titanic, you think the studio got scared of Cameron's budget?
You are missing a bunch of years. There was to the best of my knowledge, it wasn't a, well, we could do the James Cameron one, or we could do the
Yeah.
Sam Raimi one. No, it was years. Like Sam Raimi had a Spider-Man he was going to do, never happened, never came to fruition. Years later, the Raimi thing came up. So yeah, it wasn't a pick 'em. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to do a Spider-Man, and we can either go the James Cameron or the Sam Raimi way. It was years that was in between those.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
I Am Justice says, poor Cyril, there's no happy ending when you get in bed with the Empire.
I'll tell you what, I was shocked. Without going into detail or anything, but yeah, what happened with Cyril and those things was it was satisfying yet stunning and tragic all at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was such a good payoff to everything with the character. Anyway. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, saw Thunderbolts again last night at AMC at 9:30. Didn't start until 10:02. I'm putting it in my top 5 MCU films. I would be good with this group being the Avengers, now led by Yelena. I love the cast and characters. Throw in Thor, Spidey, Falcon, done.
Well, that's the other team, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be
And
your other team
remember,
there.
in the comics, New Avengers, Secret Avengers, and Avengers all ran concurrently and were all like their own separate teams. So
Yeah. I have noticed the last couple of times I've gone to my local AMC theater, the movie has generally started about 20 minutes after showtime, which is still too long. That's still too long. But it's an improvement from the 28 to 31 minutes that the movie has always started, at least the last number of years, after showtime starts.
Yeah.
Again, I do not see, listen, folks, listen. I'll say this once and we'll move on. There is no valid argument against why movie theaters should not be required to tell their paying customers when the movie actually starts. You can't make any valid argument against that. Like you want to say showtime is 7 p.m., movie starts at 7:27. Guess what? Sports does that. Tonight's Laker game, 7 p.m., tip-off 7:07. It says that.
Concerts do that. It says doors 7, show 8:30.
NFL does that.
Yeah.
We go to some Rams games, games at 4 p.m., kickoff at 4:05. Movie theaters, 100%. Unless you're just saying we're going to be slimy little assholes and we want to continue to manipulate the audience to try to force them to do something they don't want to do despite the fact that they're paying customers. There's no reason movie theaters should not be required to actually tell the paying customer what time their product they bought is actually going to be delivered.
Yeah. Stop antagonizing your
Tell
audience.
us what time the movie starts. They should be required to do so.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I mean, and no one ever knows when a game is going to go too long, so the next game isn't shown, like it starts later and stuff like that. It happens with UFC, it happens with boxing. If fights go out a little bit longer, the main event's going to start. They'll try to give you a
Yeah, but that's
a
reasonable.
certain time of the ring walk, whatever, octagon walk. My problem lately has been the order. I'm starting to have a big problem with the order. If they're going to show us that many promos, I'd rather have the Nicole Kidman stuff in the front and then the trailers after.
I have said
You know
from
what
the
I mean?
beginning that Nicole Kidman and Coca-Cola and all that stuff should be run first, then trailers.
Right.
Because guess what? If you forgot your damn Coke and you just saw an ad for Coke, now you can go get your Coke during the trailers.
And you're more hype if you see a nice trailer for the movie. I think.
All right, what's next?
The Smokestack Cousins. Nah, we cousins. Hey, John, I watched Her from 2023 last night and was amazed by how much it predicted today's AI, like voice chatbots, email automation, song and image generation. I love how things can feel completely different a decade later. What was once sci-fi is now reality.
I mean, that's been happening for a long time. Like, I still remember watching Aliens. In the beginning of Aliens, when Ripley, wakes up and she gets on a video call with Paul Reiser. And we're like, this is the future.
Yeah, I'm like, the only way this could happen is if there's like film crews on both sides.
Yeah, and by the way, remember, it got really kind of life imitating art, because remember, I can't remember if it was Google's AI or one of the other AI companies. And I think Scarlett Johansson had to threaten a lawsuit because it sounded like they were directly trying to lift her voice the way she did it in Her.
Yeah.
So it was them like trying to directly do her in the modern AI. So
did you notice in the Thunderbolts trailer, the final Thunderbolts trailer where they do all the flashbacks, or is that moment where like she says, "I should have never left you behind"? That's not her voice saying that to Yelena. It's another. Listen, it's not her voice.
I did not realize that.
Yeah.
And now I got to go back and watch that. All right, what's next?
James UK says, I saw Thunderbolts and thought it was awesome. So much better than Captain America, The Brave New World. I really liked Sentry in the movie and how he looked. My favorite characters were Yelena, Red Guardian, Ghost, and Bob. Well, that's all of them.
that's all of them.
What did you think of Sentry, and who were your favorites?
Sentry was great. The way they decided to do Sentry was great. And listen, I just love, my favorite character is Red Guardian. I love him. Again, and I've emphasized this before, because he's not just comic relief. Like, he'll be super funny, and then boom, in a split second, he switches to being truly emotionally true. Like, there were several moments of that in the movie where he's like being really funny and then being very emotionally true with Yelena. And like, I just love the fact that the character can do that. And David Harbour's a prince. And so, yeah, I think that's my favorite character in it. All right, what's next?
Alex says, y'all, just wow. What an arc 3 from Andor. Episode 8 is one of the best TV episodes of all time. What a Les Mis like moment. It transcended the genre. And Mon Mothma in episode 9, spectacular acting and her speech.
You know, we were actually talking in the studio here before the show started, and we were talking a lot about episode 8. But you know what, guys? In episode 8 is mind-blowingly good. I actually think I prefer episode 9. Like, again, there were two very different episodes, but like the tension and the drama and the weight and the consequences, and like, I mean, I loved episode 8. It was so good. And then it followed it right up with the next greatest thing of all time with episode. I just couldn't believe. And by the way, because of everything that happens in episode 8 and episode 9, I think people are sleeping on episode 7.
I liked it too.
Episode 7 was great.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the best 2.5 hours I have spent with Star Wars since Return of the Jedi. The absolute best 2.5 hours of Star Wars since Return of the Jedi.
So this block of episodes is probably the top of far.
We'll have to see how next week goes.
Even
but
from
yeah.
first season, even compared to first season.
Yeah. I'm not
Wow.
like, this 2.5 hours beats any 2.5 hours from season 1. Like,
Wow. Okay.
so good. Anyway. All right, what's next?
Ray with a $20 tip.
Thank you, Ray again.
Ray.
On a completely different opinion, I'm sorry to say, but Andor so far is not the best Star Wars ever. I guess critic Tom Bacon saw something else I can't see. Who knows? Maybe the last 3 stick the landing. At least I'm hoping some episodes are great, but not best ever. Just my opinion. It's not going to be for everybody.
Listen, I keep trying to emphasize this. That's the reality of art. Art will hit us all in different and unique ways. And just because it hits a lot of us in one way doesn't mean it's going to hit everybody in that way. And that's not just something we need to tolerate. That's something to be celebrated about the art. That any piece of art is going to hit somebody in a really significant, good way, even if it doesn't hit anybody else that way. And vice versa. I'm not a fan of the original Blade Runner. Even though it's universally acknowledged as one of the great sci-fi epic classics of all time. And I acknowledge that. But if I'm being honest, I have to admit that because it's a piece of art, it just didn't hit me that way. And that's okay. And so if it didn't hit you that way, doesn't need to hit you that way. All right. What's next?
Let's see. The Batman two-parter, and they're both $50, so $100.
Oh my God! Thank you, Batman, or Mr. Wayne.
Yeah. So I one of two. So I feel like I'm at a point where I'm going to call it and say Andor season 2 will not surpass season 1. However, it's still very good. It's just season 1 was part of the original 5-season plan, so it was more polished and crafted, in my opinion. But for as much as they are having to try to tell and wrap up in season 2, they're still being able to pull it off. I hope I don't see Deidre turn rebel in the last arc. I've had enough of the Imperial turn rebel story, especially after torturing rebels and going through Ferrix.
But I mean, I would say that we were talking about that today before the show started. We were having a little discussion about whether we think Dedra was going to defect or not. But that's whenever you get the story of authoritarian regimes, the constant refrain of that is that there are human beings within it who start to realize this isn't right. Even in the last episode of The Last of Us, the religious fanatic guy saying, "You will lose."
Yeah.
To which Isaac says, "Why do you think that? We got automatic weapons." Well, he says, "Because every day a wolf leaves to come join us, but none of us ever leave to become wolves."
Yeah. And I feel like that was pulled right from the game, that line.
I can't remember, to be honest with you, but it might have been. But I mean, and I think that is it's not just a Star Wars thing. I think that is an important part of those types of stories. Now, again, I don't think Deidre will do that. But if they did, listen, we're seeing a lot of Imperials that don't. To have one that does, I think is interesting and befitting of a story like this.
Right.
So we'll see how they pull it off.
Yeah, what was that novel where there was like they were friends going up through the academy, and then
is it Lost Stars?
Might have been Lost Stars. And then she's like, no, we're just here to like show our authority to what's it called? Alderaan.
Right.
And then she was like, oh my God, that's
they made you pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden you got to rethink everything. Listen, I don't care if you're a good guy or a bad guy. When you start seeing atrocities, something the human part of you gets tinged.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah. Anyway, we'll see what they do with it though in the last 3 episodes. All right, what's next?
Let's see. So then Batman follows up, so another 50. So now we're at 150 from Batman.
Thank you, dude.
Gotta highlight the latest Andor arc. Since for decades, I always wanted to see the catalyst of what gets the rebellion its juice to get support on the galactic scale, with the massacre and Mon Mothma going public against the Empire being shown live action.
Yeah, listen, and again, in Star Wars lore, if you watch some of the animation, there's another vital speech that Mon Mothma gives, but that's the one. That's the first time in the Senate since Palpatine takes power that a senator straight up says Palpatine's a monster. Right?
Yeah.
It's probably a lot of the senators thought that, but all the other senators are afraid of Palpatine. So just go along, toe the party line, say what Palpatine wants them to say. And Mon Mothma became the first. This is why I felt like I was watching Star Wars history happen.
Mm-hmm.
This was the first time in the Senate that a senator stood up and did that, especially in the light of that. And that becomes, I mean, really, when you think about it, Mon Mothma is probably the single most important character in Star Wars lore. She probably is. Like, maybe even more than Luke, maybe even more than Yoda. But when you really sit back and look at the total picture of the Star Wars story, not going all the way back to Old Republic or forward in the future of 1,000 years, but this kind of time frame that we traditionally understand as the Star Wars timeline. I think there's a very good argument to be made that Mon Mothma may actually be the most important character. And I mean, these episodes just kind of really highlighted that.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, John, back when they announced that they were going to redesign the movie Sonic, you said it was a mistake for Paramount's part, but now that we have 3 films and a TV spinoff, soon a 4th film, do you think it was still a mistake?
I think it was unnecessary. Like, look, here's the reality. And I stand by, look, first, let me say, the redesign looked better than the original design. It did. I'll first want to say it. The new design looks better than the old design. But they still would have been the exact same movie. They still would have been the exact same movie. The lines would have been just as funny. Nothing else changes, just the design. And the design is better, but it fundamentally didn't change the film. And I think we still would have had 3 movies and we still would have had all that because the movie's still great. Even if the character doesn't look quite as good, the movie's still great. And so, yeah, I think it was a waste of time for them to make the change, even though I acknowledge that the change was an improvement. But also, you got to remember this. This is the one thing that I got to qualify with myself, though, is that changing the design wasn't that hard. Because remember, the bones, the animation is all already done. They didn't have to, it's not like they had to scrap it and start from scratch. They literally just had to put, in layman's terms, they literally just had to put a new skin on it and re-render it. So it wasn't that big of a deal, but yeah, it was an improvement, but the movie still would have been as successful because it's still the same movie. Anyway. All right, what's next?
Robot Man, this Star Wars is different. The Gorman massacre was so tragic, so real that I got emotional. It was scary. And the last episode, oh my God, I don't think I will ever look at Star Wars the same. Can I just say real quick, the score too? We didn't touch on the score.
Oh, the music is so good.
Throughout all these episodes, the score has been incredible. In the last episode, oh my God, I don't think I've ever looked at Star Wars the same way ever again. When the show is over, I will watch Rogue One.
Oh yeah, I think once the final episode of Andor airs, you're going to see a big spike
in Rogue One.
In Rogue One streaming. Yeah. You're going to see a big spike in Rogue One streaming. Again, it was, Rob alluded to this. I talked about this the other week too, that when you get sci-fi, fantasy, all that kind of stuff, where we find anchors that we actually relate to our own experiences and our own reality, it becomes that much more, it makes the fantastical feel that much more impactful. And like watching the Massacre of Gorman or like even the Les Misness of it, or the stuff going on in the Senate, it feels so uncomfortably real that it just elevates the fantasticalness of it and really drives it home. It's just incredible. All right, what's next?
Banana and onion juice, yummy. $20.
$20. Thank you, Banana.
Hi, John and company. You were right that Lion King 2019 is not live action. However, sharing this spectrum of animated categories would be helpful for people to communicate. Like photorealistic animation is a appropriate term as opposed to hand drawn. Well,
but animation is animation, right? Taking created art and then using in today's thing, computers to move those things. It's animation. I don't think you need, because the photorealism is just how different ways in which it's rendered. And let's face it, there is no hand-drawn animation anymore. I mean, not really. I mean, it still exists. Yes, like cassette tapes still exist, but I mean, everything is CGI animated now. Lion King was completely, other than the one opening shot of a sunrise, that entire movie is completely made in a computer. It's animated. It's not live action. There was no sets. There was no cameras. There were no, it was all done in computers. It was all just like Toy Story was made. Lion King was made just the same way Toy Story was made. It's rendered differently, but it's not live action. So animated is animated. But I think people were fooled. It looks so good that people thought they were like real lions just with their mouths being animated, and they're actually cameras shot footage in an actual, African safari landscape and then just put the animated line. No, it's all done. That entire thing is done in a computer. It is 100% animated. All right, what's next?
Let's see. We got 156 Jedi says, what a powerful episode of Andor last night. All three. The question is, do you think Yoda could hear the scream of the massacre?
Well,
didn't he cut himself off from the Force to hide?
To a degree, or he didn't use it much.
Yeah.
Now remember, for Obi-Wan, when Obi-Wan heard the voices, there was an entire planet
Right.
being destroyed. 500, 600, I don't know. You know what? Yeah, probably. There's probably a Jedi out there somewhere who could feel it. I'm going to guess that you're right. That's my guess, is that you're right. All right, what's next?
Performing Artist says, hello. I've been thinking of the new Naked Gun series. Given the state, well, it's actually going to be a movie, but given the state of U.S. politics, the old Nielsen movies made fun of world leaders. Can you imagine all the fun they could have making fun of world leaders in today's world? I hope they go there and commit. I mean, Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2 did the same thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I listen, I think if they have a good joke, here's what I don't think they're going to do. We have to include jokes about world leaders.
No.
I don't think they're going to do that. But I don't think they're going to shy away if they have a great joke to use in a place that has to do with like global leaders. I think they'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see why they'd shy away from that. I think it's safe. All right, what's next?
Future Man, in what order should I begin watching Battlestar Galactica? There seems to be many spin-off shows and movies. What would you recommend starting with first? Also, do you have any thoughts about this old sci-fi show Farscape? I was just thinking about Farscape.
You know what? Farscape is exactly my kind of show, but I never really got into it. On paper, that's a show that's like almost like made for John Campea to like. I was never into it as much as my friends were. As far as Battlestar Galactica goes, there's really only one thing you need to watch, and that's the main Ronald D. Moore Battlestar Galactica series.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to watch Caprica. You don't have to watch, what was it called? Blood Razor? There was another spin-off little thing, whatever. All you really need to watch is Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica. That's it. That's the only thing you have to. If you want to, for fun, to go back and watch the 1970s one, you can totally do that. Don't, whatever you do, watch Battlestar Galactica 1980. Don't watch that. But the original series, yeah, you can go back, but really just Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica. All you got to do and you're good. All right, what's next?
We got Kunkari says, hi, John. Who says the direct middle row seats are objectively the best in the movie theater? Science does. Science says that. I prefer that the very back row, sometimes even right at the end. It makes me feel more comfortable. That's why I don't think theaters would charge different prices. They tried.
Oh, they did try it. They did do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did do it. I mean, nobody says objectively, but they can tell with data that when people start picking their seats, those are the first ones that get picked. That's just data. Again, that doesn't mean it's objectively the best, but in terms of data, it says, hey, most people, this seems to be where our seats get sold first.
Well, and if you think about the surround sound setup, where's our two shot? I guess I didn't establish that.
I mean, but I mean, if you got a really well calibrated room, it may not matter, right?
Right. You're not going to know, the general audience is not going to go in there and be like, oh, I was left upper from center, so I could hear the difference. You're not going to hear the difference.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
Tron, they won't do it, but if I was Marvel, I would totally Batgirl Ironheart. Comes out next month, and there's almost no buzz hype around it. And if it's bad, why risk losing momentum that Daredevil and Thunderbolt started for you?
Yeah, when does Ironheart come out?
I had that up.
Now, look that up for me. Now, remember, we always talk about this. People expect that TV shows...
June 24th.
June 24th, okay. That they'll market the same way movies do. But that's not generally speaking how TV shows market. The TV shows start marketing a lot closer to their release, unless there's a brand new series coming, right? I don't know if you can really qualify Ironheart as that, since it is in the MCU and everything like that.
You know, one thing I wanted to bring up, on the heels of this, the topic we were talking about of no movie characters moving into, like, we could have TV show characters possibly show up in a movie down the line, but no, they're moving away from, you have to see these movie characters in a Disney Plus series. that's right on the heels of this whole thing falling out with Jeremy Renner not being in Hawkeye season 2. And I understand that was because of pay reasons, but it's also like, well, there again, now not Sentry, but Vision is going to be the final movie character
According
in
to
Disney
the
Plus.
report.
According to the report.
And by the way, for the record, I still think Jeremy Renner will be in Hawkeye season 2. I think, like, I don't know that. I'm just saying, my guess is they'll get that all worked out. We'll see if they do or not, but I think they will. But yeah, I honestly, like right now, with it still being like a month and a half away, I don't think it's all that weird that we're not getting heavy marketing for Ironheart yet. They market TV shows on different timelines than they do for movies, and this is not unusual. I'd be lying if I said I was excited about Ironheart. I just didn't like the character in Wakanda Forever. There was nothing about the way they wrote that. This is a character. Riri Williams could have been an extremely interesting on-screen character.
Yep.
But they flatlined the character in Wakanda Forever, and I was actually less enthusiastic about seeing the Ironheart series once I saw her in Wakanda Forever. Hopefully the show will be great, and we'll all love it, but I'd be lying to you if I said I had a lot of enthusiasm for it yet. All right, what's next?
All right, we got 5 more tips. I think we can do this. Luis says, hello to all of you on the show. Do you guys think we'll get a Sentry versus Doom fight at some point? Will Sentry have to go to or into his void form to beat Doom or have a chance against him? I feel like something's set up there, but I feel like it's to be manipulated.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see Sentry straight up one-on-one fight Doom. I think, again, I have a suspicion that Doom may capture Sentry and use him likened unto the way Molecule Man is used in the Secret Wars comic story. Either Sentry or Loki. So I'm not really sure, but I don't think we're going to see, because honestly, Doom can't beat Sentry.
Mm-hmm.
Doom can't beat Sentry.
And
depending on what they want to do with him.
And even though I hate it, I feel this is a good move for them, keeping him as regular form. You know what I mean? And making, when he turns into the Sentry, like a rare instance. You know what I mean? Like a big build up to him becoming the Sentry. I think they're gonna wait. Or do you think there'll be more? They'll use the hero form more.
That's what I
movies.
think. I think it's.
You think?
Yeah.
Because like when he was sitting on the couch, I was like, I was thinking, they're gonna save his heroic stuff for like special events.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, like has to be something incredibly important, because again, when he becomes Sentry, he risks Void coming out.
Right.
And that's the thing that's got to be avoided at all times.
It kind of reminds me of Dark Phoenix a little bit.
Yeah, a bit. Only more so.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, I respect the legacy of the original trilogy, but they're a product of their time and was never moved by Luke as a hero. After seeing the Empire and Andor, Luke would have been like Jesus to people, most of who never had seen the Force in their lifetime. He didn't expose his powers to a lot of people.
Who didn't?
Luke. Like, he wasn't like to a lot of people in the first trilogy. He wasn't just using the Force in front of soldiers and stuff.
Well, and he wasn't in front. I mean, let's face it. In the trilogy, he's not in front of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like he never
He really
is in
isn't.
front of a lot of people.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think there have ever been more consequential movies than the original Star Wars trilogy. I mean, they have changed the industry. And whenever you hear any filmmakers, when you talk to filmmakers and you talk to the greatest filmmakers and they'll talk about what are the movies that influence you, almost all of them will have Star Wars on that list, right? It's just the most consequential series of movies ever made.
Yeah,
I still think it's like some of the visual effects are a little questionable. Yes,
Right.
because the movies are like decades and decades and decades old, but the stories themselves hold up so well.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't see
still
how the
think they're best.
story or the hero story is a product of its time. It's a classic story.
Yeah.
So,
All right, what's next?
Mr. Ice is Andor. Wow, just wow. Don't know about you guys, but following next week's episodes, I'm going to immediately watch the series finale, Andor season 3, aka Rogue One.
Yeah. Again, I think you're going to see a massive Disney Plus spike in Rogue One streaming.
I have
Because
decided.
I'm going to do that same thing. That's going to be my Tuesday evening next week. I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch the 3 new episodes, the final 3 episodes, and then I'm going to watch Rogue One, and then I'll watch the studio. So that's
Oh,
my
and the studio.
Tuesday night next week.
I love using the studio as my palate cleanser.
Yep, it's a great palate cleanser.
Yep. Mr. I follows up. This isn't the first time we've seen the Empire commit genocide, but seeing the Gorman massacre is the most visceral. That seeing a planet get blown up. Actually felt bad for Cyril at the end. He came to his senses till he saw Andor, then pop.
I think that's the thing, right? Like, obviously, what was the bigger atrocity? Well, obviously, Alderaan. That's the bigger atrocity,
Well,
of
and
course.
Scarif, Alderaan, whatever they used in the.
Yeah, well, Scarif was more of a limited military base sort
Well,
of
what
thing.
about that other planet in the beginning of Rogue One? They messed that up too. Remember where Saul Guerrera is stationed?
Yep. But again, that was even more limited. Alderaan was an entire civilization. An entire civilization.
Jeddah, yes, Jeddah.
It was, and it was pure true genocide. So obviously that's the bigger atrocity. But Star Wars never took us onto the ground of Alderaan in the movie. We didn't see children playing in the park. We didn't see people living their lives. We didn't see families together and the bustling life of a thing before the Death Star showed up and blew it up. To us watching the movie is, yeah, we knew that's a planet, and oh no, Princess Leia, that's her home, and boom, there it goes. But with Gorman, like we're as the audience, we are boots on the ground. We've seen these people laugh and love, and then watch them getting wiped out. So it was the bigger atrocity was clearly Alderaan by miles, but it felt heavier because we were there with them in the movie. And that's something we didn't get with Alderaan in the original Star Wars. All right, what's next?
It was 37 minutes. Says, since it was brought up again, I saw Thunderbolts Thursday with a 6:55 showtime after trailers. His show started at 7:32, so I guess 7:37.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I
That's
have no
awful.
People listen, movie fans.
Yeah.
Once it goes past 25 minutes, we need to get out of our seats and go and ask for a manager and say, listen, you said 7 o'clock showtime. I get it. You need a couple of trailers, whatever. It's almost been a half hour. I paid to be here.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Like, people seriously need, I think I need to start getting a hold of my other fellow film pundits and getting all of us to start saying, guys, if you go to a movie, all of our fellow film fans, once it gets past like 20 plus minutes,
Yeah.
we should get up, go and ask for a manager and say, this is unacceptable. And maybe then things will start to change. I don't know.
Yeah, that is a crazy amount of time. I mean, my AMC the 16 for the past, I've done like probably the last 25 movies I've seen there, maybe more, has consistently been 23 minutes for showtime to start after everything. But that's crazy.
All right, what's next?
This is our last of the tips. My theater has one prime seat. RE prime seating. For the theater I go to most, I have a very specific seat I want. It's dead center on the screen, and because I'm a nerd, I did the math and found the sound coverage. That's why I'm saying science. Converges 3 feet in front of my face. Seat L13. I used to work when I was in accounting. I used to work for Harman Kardon and JBL, and I worked near the laboratories where they did the speakers for theaters and stuff. That's why I'm like, I know.
And listen, so, if I'm in a AMC Prime theater, doesn't matter where I sit because all the seats are great. They're comfortable. The sound system is so well tuned, all that kind of stuff. But if I'm in a normal movie theater, my seat of choice, you know how there's the front 3 or 4 rows, then the aisle, and then the main chunk of seating. I like sitting in the second row of the main chunk of seating behind the handicap spots because 99% of the time the handicap spots are
You
empty.
put your feet up.
And I'm able to put my feet up on the bars and stretch out and relax. So yes, in a regular movie theater, that's my favorite seat.
I go for row J in the either the Prime or the Dolby. Oh, actually, even the IMAX, because it's that extra wide aisle, so I can just stretch my feet out or whatever.
And we did it. We finally got
did it.
caught up
We
after
did it.
not being able to get to tip questions on Thursday and Friday. It took us
know.
to Wednesday, but we've gotten all the way caught up on our tip questions. Guys, That'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here, making our little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because it gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much, especially you, Batman, for your support. I want to thank, of course, Chris Carr and Robert Meyer Burnett. I want to thank Ray Ora.
Thank you, Sal Saperstein.
Jonathan Voico.
Okay, see you later.
My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.